All right.
Right.
Now that we have solved AI FOMO
Yep.
and
started a company.
Yes. We started a company. We read an 80-year-old speech. We solved AI FOMO.
Not sure what you came here for, but that's what you got.
Right. If you made it this far in.
Right. Yeah.
Julie keeps
So
telling me you
to
need
both of our moms.
Yes, you need, well, and she's like, you can't do like a 2-hour episode. She's like, you got to
that's what
break
she
it.
said?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is this multiple episodes?
I don't know.
We'll see.
We have to see.
Yeah. All right.
We'll fix it in post.
Great.
Okay. 2 more things to cover in this episode. One is a brief discussion on mental models, and the other is tool time. We're going to talk about Zo.computer or Zo-computer.
Yeah. Awesome.
Okay. Mental models. So here we can show this to the video camera. I guess maybe I could hold it up in front of me, like
Either way.
my camera. The great mental models. So I actually mentioned Shane Parrish
Yeah, the
earlier.
podcast.
Yep. The Knowledge Project.
Mm-hmm.
And brief summary, I'm not intimately, I don't have an intimate knowledge of, all of the beginnings, but he got really into Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett.
Yes.
Of Berkshire Hathaway fame. And Charlie Munger, has this, he calls it a lattice work of mental models, and he has this theory, or practical theory is probably a better way to put it, that if you get a handle on the core mental models that describe different fundamental parts of the world, that you can sort of tackle, you have the mental agility to tackle almost any subject or make a way better than average decision about anything.
Yeah.
And so he said, there's probably like 80 or 90 mental models that carry the freight, sort of for most things that we face, which is interesting to just mathematically define that.
And what a crazy thing to research or try to understand from the beginning.
That's fascinating. In all disciplines, right? So economics, art, math and science, et cetera. Which is super cool. So there's a series of books you can buy called The Great Mental Models. Shane Parrish essentially goes through and breaks down all of these, and he put them in a series. And I've been working my way through them over the last couple of years, and they're awesome. So I thought it'd be fun on the show just to tackle a mental model per show.
Yeah.
Which is really fun. So here's the one I chose for today, Bottlenecks. And this is from the Systems and Mathematics, the Systems and Mathematics Mental Model book, which is volume 3. Okay, Bottlenecks. I'm doing a lot of reading.
Yeah.
This is great. Analog reading.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to bounce around, and then you can enlighten us.
Oh, man. It's like, I shouldn't have started out with the... Next time we'll switch.
That's
I'll
right.
pick the model.
All systems have parts that are slower than others. The slowest part of a system is called the bottleneck because, as the neck of a bottle limits the amount of liquid that can flow through, bottlenecks in systems limit the amount of outputs they can produce. Viewing systems through the lens of their bottlenecks offers us a powerful perspective. These constraints can either stifle our progress or serve as a strategic choke point that, when managed wisely, can compel efficiency and innovation. Every system has a bottleneck. You cannot completely eliminate them because once you remove one, another part of the system becomes the new limiting factor. You can, however, anticipate bottlenecks and plan accordingly, or you can leverage the need to overcome them as an impetus for finding new ways of making a system work. Sometimes you can overcome bottlenecks by adding more of the same, such as dedicating more resources to ease the pressure on a bottleneck, but sometimes the sole solution is to rethink that part of the system. What you want to avoid is opening one bottleneck only to create additional worse ones for yourself later. If bottlenecks are unavoidable, we at least want them to be in a less disruptive place. And then I'm actually going to... okay. He gives the example of the Trans-Siberian Railway. It was a massive undertaking. So it was the longest railway in the world, but the challenges of building over such a long distance were unmatched at the time. The railway spans the entirety of Russia from St. Petersburg into the west, close to Finland, in the west, close to Finland, to Vladivostok on the Sea of Japan, just east of North Korea. Given the scope of the undertaking, 9,458 kilometers, 2 to 3 times longer than the transcontinental railways that had been built in North America at the time, it's not surprising that addressing a bottleneck would have far-reaching consequences. So there are a number of interesting things here. The TSR was a complex undertaking, so attempts to alleviate a bottleneck could easily cause unanticipated consequences. There is a continued shortage of local supplies. There were limits to construction schedules caused by seasonal weather. The fact that decisions about the railway had to go through a central committee in St. Petersburg with weeks-long communication delay created uncoordinated short-term solutions uncoordinated short-term solutions to problems. In addition, the deepest lake in the world sits in the middle of the route, which is fascinating. So let's jump here to the conclusion, and I'll just read this. Bottlenecks are the choke points, the narrow parts of the hourglass where everything slows down. They're the constraints that limit the flow, the weakest links in the chain that determine the strength of the whole. In any system, the bottleneck is the part that's holding everything else back. The tricky thing about bottlenecks is that they're not always obvious. It's easy to focus on the parts of the system that are moving quickly and assume everything is fine, but the real leverage is in finding and fixing the bottlenecks. Speed up the slowest part, and you speed up the whole system. This is a theory of constraints in a nutshell. Figure out what your bottleneck is and focus all your efforts on alleviating it. Don't waste time optimizing the parts that are already fast. They're not a limiting factor. However, bottlenecks aren't always the villains we make them out to be. Sometimes they're a necessary part of the system. Think of a security checkpoint at an airport. It slows everything down, but there's a reason. Remove it and you might speed things up, but at the cost of safety. The key is to be intentional about your bottlenecks, choose them wisely, and make sure they're serving a purpose. A deliberate bottleneck can be a powerful tool for focusing effort and maintaining quality. An accidental bottleneck is just a drag on the system. Bottlenecks are the leverage points, the places where a little effort can go a long way. All right, John, enlighten us.
So how many mental models between all the books?
Well, that's a good question. I think
Like
there are
several
probably,
hundred?
oh yeah, dozens.
Dozens. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know all of them, like especially
Nor
off the
do
top of
I.
my head. But this has got to be near the top of the ones that you hear about all the time,
Yeah,
like in a business and conversations.
I agree.
Bottlenecks, like
Yes.
yeah.
Totally. That's part of why I picked it, because it's a more easily accessible one. We'll get
Right.
deeper as we go along.
Right. So, yeah, I think the interesting piece of that is because we hear it all the time. Do we even know what we're talking about?
Yep.
And then the second component is, well, I'll just share what I think people think it means
Okay.
by default.
Yep.
Even without thinking about it, I'd probably fall in this camp too. One, bottlenecks are always bad, which we just heard not necessarily.
Yep.
Two, we should have meetings about getting rid of the bottlenecks. And then three, everybody should be focused on like getting rid of the bottlenecks.
Yep. That's what you think that most people think about bottlenecks.
Yeah. That's been my professional experience of like,
Yep.
bottlenecks are bad. We should get everybody involved and everybody should like think about the bottleneck and get rid of it. And what
Yep.
are the bottlenecks? If we can't think of one, like let's spend all our effort, like,
Yep.
finding the bottleneck. One problem with that, bottlenecks are not all bad. Two, it's rarely the most efficient thing to focus everybody on alleviating the bottleneck. That usually makes things slower.
Okay.
And that it breaks the principle of having the least people needed on the problem to solve the problem, which is typically the fastest route.
Yes.
Unless you're
right.
like, for knowledge work. If you're moving bricks, then more people is better, right?
Yes.
But with knowledge work, typically you want to limit the number of people to the least number of people that's still efficient to solve the problem.
Yep.
So that's my first take on it. Second take would be yeah, again, in the knowledge work context, thinking about like there's two big books that come to mind. One is The Goal, which is like a business
Yep.
book.
Yep.
A lot of business curriculums include that. Two, more IT specific, a book called The Phoenix Project.
Which are related because they mentioned, I think the Phoenix Project was sort of,
They contextualize pieces of The Goal
yep,
for like tech, IT jobs. And it's like 20 years newer, 30
Yep.
years newer.
Yep.
So that's what comes to mind when I think about bottlenecks.
yeah,
Are
absolutely.
you
I've-
familiar with both of those?
Oh yeah,
books? Okay.
yeah. I haven't read The Goal, but I have read the Phoenix Project, and it's a phenomenal book.
Yeah. So the fun thing from, and this was just so accessible. I think this is from The Goal, and they mention it, something similar in the Phoenix Project, is they get you to visualize what a bottleneck is. And the visualization, I believe, is a Boy Scout troop hike in the wilderness. Oh, so imagine there's this troop hiking single file in
Yep.
the wilderness. And there's a kid at the back that's struggling a little bit to keep up after a couple miles. I think his name's Herbie in the book. So
a
Herbie's
great
in the
name.
back, struggling to keep up a little bit. And and then the group has to stop and wait for Herbie,
Yep.
whatever. So the illustration is if you move Herbie to the front of the group and then keep going at Herbie's pace, that is actually the most efficient way. And that is the way to
Oh yeah.
I don't want to say alleviate the bottleneck, but to make things smoother for
Totally.
everybody, essentially.
Totally.
Also true of children. If you're hiking with children, having the slower one at the front.
Yes.
But
Yes. Not
yeah, so
considering the fights over who's going to be the leader.
right, of course, yeah. And the practical of you should run ahead and get some energy out. But
Yes.
other than that,
Yes.
I don't know. But that's the visual that the book uses that I think is interesting.
Yeah, totally. No, I think that's great. I was thinking about an example from my experience, and they talk about hidden bottlenecks aren't always obvious,
Right.
and I was thinking about that a little bit. And so I ran a product organization at a tech startup company, and there's one of the like preeminent challenges in building a software product, especially in the tech space, is really any software product, really any product, but we'll just limit it to the context of my experience. So how do you understand the actual pain point of the customer in a way that reveals whether or not you're solving an actual pain point or just a perceived pain point? And then, will people actually pay for this, or will it
Right.
generate some sort of meaningful
Right.
contribution to the business? That in and of itself is an entire discipline, that people spend their entire life mastering. It's really difficult, really fun.
Yep.
But then you have to translate that to, generally from a product organization who's in between a bunch of other functions, like go to market and, support and all that sort of stuff, to like a design and engineering organization who's actually going to go build the thing, right?
Right.
And so that's just a preeminent challenge of like, how do you do that really well? There are a ton of resources around that. Marty Kagan and the Silicon Valley Product Group.
Yep. Inspired.
Yes.
Empowered.
Yes. Great. But I mean,
Loved. Is that love something? What's the third one?
I can't remember what the third one
remember
is.
either.
Yeah. Inspired, empowered, loved.
It doesn't sound right, but I think that's right.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds like a,
When you say them, it's like, are you sure? Are you sure I should read those books? They are good. They actually are good.
It sounds like a self-help podcast.
Yeah.
No, they're
I mean,
amazing.
it's very eat, pray, love. Like,
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Yes. That's
they're very
that's
good
what I was
books,
going
though.
for.
Yeah.
They're amazing. Okay, so anyways, all that to say, there are all sorts of ways that we worked to make that process more efficient, right? Because the more efficient you get there, the faster your cycles go, the quicker you solve problems for customers, and the faster you get to places where they're willing to pay you more money, right? And one of the unseen bottlenecks that we actually didn't uncover until we found a tool that revealed it for us was prototyping.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And so before the advent of vibe coding, it was a tremendous amount of effort to translate what the product team viewed as the customer pain point and the manifestation of that into some sort of prototype that could be used to do a couple things. Like, first and foremost, in my opinion, was to get something in front of customers to validate,
Right.
and then second, to actually communicate to like the design and engineering teams, exactly what needed to be built, as a high fidelity prototype, as opposed to just a documentation with specs and stuff, which need to be associated with it. Anyways, all that to say, we were Vercel customers at the time, and of course I work for Vercel now, so it's kind of crazy to go back and think about this.
Yeah,
But
sure.
we were using Vercel, and Vercel launched this tool called V0, which is, they call it a vibe coding tool. It can do all sorts of awesome things, but you can essentially prompt it and, it will generate, websites, apps, all that sort of stuff. And you can get super high fidelity with it. Back when we discovered, this has got to be 2 years ago. It was way more primitive than it is now. Now it can just build, sort of end-to-end software and push it to production, which is really crazy. But it was the most unbelievable difference in removing the bottleneck of prototyping, because the product manager could go talk. They, number one, spent way more time talking with customers. So they had a much more acute understanding of what the pain point was. They had more margin to determine whether or not, this fit into the pricing model, whether or not there were ways to charge for it, or if it was something that would actually just, to your point about the name of the third book, Loved, is just something we need to do to make our customers love us more, that we're not necessarily going to charge for.
Well, and I think if you're not in this world in product or engineering or in SaaS in general, I think the most helpful analogy for me is thinking about, all right, you need to communicate this thing. It's complex, hard to communicate, and it's like net new. So you can't just say like, oh, it's like this.
Right.
And you have to like write a letter, and that's like your only form factor. Versus you can have a complete audio, visual, or even in-person experience, like explaining the thing with like a whiteboard or a presentation or whatever. It's almost like that.
100%. And that was, like I said, it was dramatic. I don't think I'm overstating it when I say that it played a big role in some ways transforming the entire way that we approach product development and our relationship on the product team with design and engineering.
I think the better analogy is, imagine you're developing physical products and you're looking at it in CAD versus a model printed on a 3D printer.
Yeah.
I think that's a better analogy.
Totally. Yeah, it was amazing. But that was such a hidden bottleneck, right?
Sure.
No one would have, if you asked people like, what's the biggest bottleneck here? They wouldn't have said our ability to prototype, right? But once we started kicking the tires on that, we realized, oh, this is a hidden bottleneck.
Right.
And once we removed it, it dramatically increased velocity. Now, the other interesting thing, now that I think about it in the context of the book, is what you don't want to do is remove one bottleneck and create another one. Now, the interesting thing that we had to control for was, you remove this bottleneck of prototyping, so you're having the highest possible fidelity communication between the product team and design and engineering about what are the basic heuristics of what we need to build. And I also went and tested this with a bunch of customers, and here's their feedback and all this sort of stuff. But you still actually do need clear product specifications.
Sure.
And even more so today, where an agent may be working alongside a developer, or a developer is using an agent.
Which I think the physical product thing is perfect, because it's like, like you get to hold it and like, so 3D printed model of like your thing, and you hold it and you test it with people like, oh, this is great, I'd love one. Yep. And then you hand it to engineering, you're like, here it is. No spec, no CAD drawings, no nothing. Like, that would be worse. That's really hard.
Yeah.
But if
totally.
you hand it with the
Yes.
spec and the
Yeah,
CAD
exactly.
drawing, like,
Exactly.
yeah, I think it's similar.
Yeah, it's super interesting. Okay, good bottleneck. You brought up kids. I was thinking about this. We were talking with our older two kids, so 9-year-old, 7-year-old, 2.5-year-old, so we have the baby is, kind of running everyone in the household ragged, being
Sure.
a 2.5-year-old. And we were actually talking about with the older kids how they get appropriately frustrated, right?
Right.
They're working on a marble run or something, and
Yeah.
the baby just comes in and just destroys it,
Right.
after 30 minutes of
Right.
trying to build this masterpiece.
Right.
Okay, I mean, that's legitimate frustration.
Sure.
That's not fun. And I didn't think about it when we were talking to them about this, but we were kind of explaining, like, this is a bottleneck for our entire family, right?
Oh,
If the
interesting.
baby wasn't here, we could do a lot more.
Yeah.
I could spend more time with you, right?
Right.
Whatever it is, right? Like, we could stay at places longer because we wouldn't have a nap time,
Sure.
etc. But in aggregate, like, we're all becoming more patient. We're learning how to interact with each other.
Right.
We're learning how to deal with frustration. We're all, trying to participate in teaching, and teaching the baby, like, what you can do and can't
Right.
do, And so
Right.
it's like, okay, this is actually a good, if we, which of course, like a 7 and 9-year-old whose marble run just got destroyed are going to have,
Right.
stepping back and having a conversation about mental models is exactly what they want
Is
to
that
do
what
in
you
that
do?
moment.
Is that-
Yeah. I pulled
Now,
out the book.
kids. You did.
No.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Is there a picture book version?
That would actually be awesome.
That would be awesome.
But no, I mean, it was like interesting to think about bottlenecks, right? Where it's like, this
Yeah.
is actually a good thing.
Not always
you
a
know?
bad thing.
Yeah. Anyways. Okay. Anything else on bottlenecks?
I think one kind of last thing that I was thinking about professionally is when you start to see them, you will see a lot of them. And it can be hard doing your job when you know that you're not working on the ultimate bottleneck and that it's not your job to work on the bottleneck.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yep.
So I'm just going to give an example. Say you're in a technical role and the bottleneck is sales. Right. So this has been a company I've worked for sales is usually a bottleneck for a time, and then sometimes it becomes execution and operations or tech,
Right.
and then it goes back and forth. But say you're in a technical role,
Yep.
and the clear bottleneck is sales. You can make the product awesome. You can have 100% uptime if that's your job. You can do some awesome analysis, and the bottleneck is sales, and you're not in sales. It can be hard if that's the situation, especially for an extended amount of time, to feel motivated because say before you weren't really aware of bottlenecks.
Yep.
You're like, well, I'm doing my job and things will work out. It'll be fine. Then you see the bottleneck and you're like, oh, it's sales. You're like, I can't impact that really at all.
Yep.
And then it can feel like, what's the point?
Yeah, totally. I thought of one more thing that made me think of one more good bottleneck from work.
Okay.
So at Vercel, there's a very, very high bar for what we publish on our blog or even on social platforms like X.
Right.
And the review process is, very stringent, and there's a lot of discussion, from people pretty high up in the company about what actually gets published.
Right.
And there is absolutely no question that is a bottleneck in relative to the amount that could be published with the talent that we have on the team and their level of productivity. A lot more things could get published. But, and I haven't been at Vercel for a super long time, but I have always really respected their brand. And now being on the inside, I realize it is an intentional bottleneck designed to maintain brand integrity. And it works very well.
Yeah.
It works really, really well. So there's a good one.
Okay.
Another
That
good
is a good
bottleneck
one.
for you. Yeah. There was actually funny, a project I worked on, we published a blog post and then an X post, and someone, probably a troll, made a comment about like, this seems like an AI slop generated, post or whatever.
Yeah.
And someone responded and said, if you actually knew how much labor went into crafting, 150 word, post here, you wouldn't.
If you knew the actual number of dollars that were invested in this post.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, but it's cool, it's very cool. It's fun to work at a company where there's a known intentional bottleneck like that, and it produces really high quality.
Right.
All right, mental model. We've got a handle on bottlenecks.
Time.
It's tool time. It is tool time.
You've got a tool.
I've got a tool.
It made me feel some FOMO the first time I saw it.
Yeah, we talked about this. This is what I texted you.
But I'm ready for it, though.
Okay. So I'll just intro this really briefly. I actually wrote about this concept when I applied for a company called Raycast. They did not accept my job application, and which I'm glad in part because I'm at Vercel now, which is wonderful. And they also weren't hiring, so I cold applied. But Raycast, for the listeners who aren't familiar with it, it started out as a sort of a developer productivity focused Spotlight replacement, which if you're familiar with Spotlight on a Mac, you hit Command Space.
Yeah.
And you can search your entire hard drive, launch apps, do other things, search the weather, do web searches.
Yeah, it's Alfred was one that was around a long time ago.
Anyone who's familiar with Alfred, this was like Alfred was a Spotlight replacement, and you could do all sorts of power user type stuff. And Raycast was sort of the next generation of that, and is really an unbelievable tool. So anyways, but they run, on your machine locally as a, native application. And so I had written about, if you think about Raycast that has access to your computer, your file system, even your habits and all those things, and you add AI into that mix and it's all running on your local machine, which now if you have, Apple Silicon, it's pretty beefy.
Yeah, right.
Like, what does that look like? And so one of the things that I wrote about in the context of sort of my application to Raycast was sort of imagining this future where, the battleground for AI is actually the computer operating system in the long term, not, user acquisition or, other things like that. So anyways, I'd been kind of thinking about what this looks like in the context of a computer. And so I was talking with someone who was doing a bunch of experiments. Actually, they teach a computer science class, and they have their students do assignments, and it's all code, and some of the assignments are written assignments or whatever. And they use AI to do a lot of classroom management, student progression management, all those sorts of things. And they literally are just like grepping files through Cursor. So they have it's just files, right?
Yeah.
And they said it's amazing. It's just way better than what they could achieve by trying to upload all of this into, GPT and the context window or whatever, which is super interesting. And they mentioned Zoe.computer to me.
Wow.
I think because the Vercel CEO may have mentioned it in a tweet, and they said, "Oh yeah, like you should check this out."
Isn't that fun when people are like, "Oh yeah, you probably know about this," and you're like,
"No, yeah."
No.
Anyways, Zoe is super interesting because it is a dedicated computer, literally, with provisioned memory and storage in the cloud with AI with a file system, which is really compelling as a concept. Okay. Yeah. Now, I have lots of feelings about this.
Me too.
The last thing I'll say before we get into this is the other really interesting thing is that I've seen some projects around Vercel that are actually leveraging this same idea with Vercel sandboxes. So the idea behind Vercel sandboxes is that you can run, there are lots of applications where you, like an agent will generate code and then it needs to run the code, right?
Yep.
Well, in order to do that safely, you need to run it in a sandbox.
Yep.
To validate it, run checks and all that sort of stuff, right? Well, if you put files in a sandbox and run AI over them, you're essentially replicating this concept of provisioned compute in a sandbox.
Right.
And you have files in the system, and you can actually just run AI over it, right? And so which is really interesting. It's sort of the same concept. And so I'm becoming more and more interested in this idea of files, in a file system on a machine, and AI is actually not trying to do a bunch of crazy tool calls and all that sort of stuff, but they're literally just doing very rudimentary bash stuff over a file system, which they are unbelievably good at.
Which, it's really easy to forget that all the layers of compute, your laptop, the servers that things are run on in data centers, etc., all have the same fundamental components. All the way through. And it's easy to forget that. And if you're not into technology, the other thing that's worth remembering is the cost component to having what it's called state, right? Which is when you access your computer today, like local computer today, tomorrow, everything is saved as it was.
Yep, it goes to sleep, you open it up, and it maintains system state.
Same with your phone. But the majority of software today has some amount of that, because you need that, right? You need your saved settings, at least.
Yep.
But there is an incentive to have the least amount of state possible from a cost perspective. Because think about shared resources. If you can be stateless, which is this transient, compute, I'm trying to think of a better word than that, but if you don't need to bring back the state, so think about a new chat, and you can just start
a serverless function.
Yeah, a serverless function. But I'm trying to even explain it better than that. But the local computer is what people are used to, but when people use ChatGPT, by default, you start a chat, and then you start a new chat, and you kind of forget about the old chat.
Right.
When that's the pattern, you can leverage much cheaper servers in the background that don't have to remember.
Yes.
And then if you need an old chat, you kind of load it back in.
Yes.
But you don't have this fixed computer that's dedicated to you.
Yep.
To do all the things, and that is primarily a cost reason.
Yep. Totally. Okay, that's the other interesting thing about this is let's just pull up. I'll just pull up Zoe, and we'll just talk about it. Okay. Okay. Let me share my screen here. Okay.
Yep. So the point of that is one of the really interesting things here is when you come back to this tool, everything is the same, between times using the tool versus kind of being presented with a blank slate each time.
Yep. Okay. Let me see.
At the fundamental level, and there's no tricks into loading in what you had last time. It kind of gets loaded and stuff. It's actually just physically there with the file, the file system.
Totally.
Oh, it looks different than when I last saw it.
Okay.
Cool.
But yes, everything is physically there when you load it. Okay, that was going to be a point that I made. So it'd be really fun to get the Ben, the founder of Zoe Computer, on the show to talk about this.
That would be.
So this is just going to be stream of consciousness, a little bit of stream of consciousness here, giving a little tour and just my thoughts, and then you have a bunch of thoughts as well. Okay, so this is Zoe. I was working on this. I was just tinkering around with this. Okay, so you have chats here. So I actually wanted to run Plex, which is a owned media server, so I could get all of my, manage my entire, decades of music, MP3 files. I thought that'd be interesting. And then I'll talk about a couple things here, but just to give a little tour, you can create an agent, which actually, this is kind of interesting. You can schedule it, so just basically a little WYSIWYG agent builder. You can build websites. You can do research, sort of all of these different types of prompts there. And then here's your computer. And I'm on the basic plan. I upgraded because when I was tinkering with this, I burned through all of my free credits.
Classic.
But this is the computer, which is super cool. So, I mean, this is a beefy machine here that we're running.
Well, and that was my other thought here. Let's see the memory there. It's 32 gigs.
32 gigs.
And if you look at their other plans, like you can get up to a computer that you've probably never directly used before.
Yes.
As far as how powerful it is.
Right. Which is super compelling. Which is super compelling. Okay, I have thoughts on that. Here's the file system. So these are chats. So you can actually see here that this is that this was generated from a chat, and I was basically asking Zoe, which is this kind of a weird, like, meta recursive nature of these types of tools, where it's like, what's the best way to figure out how to run Plex on Zoe? It's actually just to ask Zoe, which is pretty crazy. And then did a couple interesting things here. So I tried to import from Dropbox. I tried to import files from Dropbox. Okay, that was very clunky. They use Pipedrive as a connector, which is probably the right decision. Pipedrive is a super... Pipedream. Sorry, Pipedrive is a CRM. Pipedream.
Who just got acquired, I think.
Pipedream did?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah.
Look it up while I'm talking.
Right.
We can live do this. So it's a little bit clunky in that I...
Guess who acquired them?
Who?
That's kind of the worst. Workday.
What? Pipedream?
Mm-hmm. A Workday company.
Man. Moment of silence. I actually reached out to their founder because I thought,
yeah,
I have a lot of
maybe he has some free time
integrations. Now. Yeah. Well, no, like back in the day because I thought
okay.
They were doing some cool stuff with AI too.
Yeah, for sure.
Sort of like the Zapier N8N, Pipedream side of things. But importing from Dropbox is a little clunky, especially because, and this is something that was really interesting, you can't import a folder. You can only import individual files. So I have like a ton of nested files.
Sure.
What I was trying to do, which didn't work very well, was import some of the notes and files and other things like that that I had developed as a product leader for how to develop products.
So this is like a zip the file, get it up there, unzip it.
Can you do that? I mean, I guess you could. I don't know. Should we try it?
Probably, yeah.
Okay, we're going to try it. The other thing I'll show you really quickly, two other things, and then we can try that. So I actually did just upload all of the blog posts I've ever written on my personal blog.
Nice.
Right? And so I just went in to the local folder, which this is like an awkward, sometimes when you click, it doesn't like actually close it. So there's like a couple little janky things here. Yeah. But it's kind of cool. So I will show you what I did with that. I'll show you what I did with that. So you can add this to a chat.
So you added that entire folder.
Added the entire folder. And so this is like physical files, okay? Mm-hmm. And so this, again, is like a very interesting concept. So I could do the same thing and upload this to GPT if I wanted to.
Yeah, sure.
But what's really fascinating here is, like, I don't know exactly what's going on under the hood, but I can basically tell Zoe on this computer, like, grep these files for this information, and it's just looking for information across the physical files, like in the file system.
Right.
And when I was playing with this yesterday, it was crazy fast and way more detailed than I have experienced trying similar things and just uploading the files into the context window, right? So you don't need to blow up the context window by adding, however many files are in here.
I'm going to butcher this, and there's somebody we need to have on the show. Remind me. He's local and is like an expert in AI search, but I believe hybrid search is what it's called. And you can imagine, like, one axis is we can convert all the text files, like embed all of them, put them in a vector database, and then the AI can access it. And the other is we can use like more traditional search mechanisms. And I think what you're saying, and we can ask the founder of Zoe,
Oh, yes.
is that it's actually using more traditional mechanisms of like searching the files like you normally would, and then maybe combining that, some with the new versions. All right, summary of this.
Okay, you ready? So
Yeah,
create a
ready.
concise summary of the history of blog posts in this folder. Pull quotes or keywords as proof points of summary and style. Then focus on the last 4 or 5 blog posts, which focus more on AI. Then recommend, based on the historical summary and style, which topics that are AI related the author should cover next. Boom, let's see what happens here.
Looks like you're using Gemini 3.
That's just the default, whatever they used.
Yeah, so look, so those are like
Yep, so you
command
see it's
line,
grepping? This
yep.
is super cool.
Find and grep, yeah.
Yep. Here, we'll give this a little bit more breathing room here.
Looks like it listed directory.
Okay, this is interesting because it is... okay, blog post... Okay, yeah, this is super cool. This is exactly what I was like thinking about. Okay, let's see. Early era focus on the human side of tech. Transition towards scaling businesses. A pivot towards technological pragmatism.
Wow. Deep.
How AI and the modern developer tools are reshaping the actual output of knowledge workers. The authors, okay, do you think this is accurate? Direct, practical, and skeptically optimistic. They often use personal anecdotes to anchor high-level tech trends in reality.
Okay.
Friction, force multiplier, intentionality,
Force
velocity.
multiplier definitely sounds like you.
Imagine that. You grepped a bunch of words that I wrote, and it's pulling things that sound like me. AI is magic. Okay.
Oh, beyond the chat interface.
AI beyond the chat interface.
we're gonna do
That's an upcoming episode.
Yep.
Future topic recommendations. The junior engineer's dilemma. Learning to code in the age of cursor. Huh. Interesting. The non-deterministic team. AI as the friction remover.
The non-deterministic team, I think, is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. The other ones I don't think are hitting for me, but okay, interesting. So yeah, anyways, it's kind of interesting, right? Like I think that's a really good example of how actually having these files on a system as opposed to uploading it and sort of blowing up the context window, I think is way better.
And it's interesting because Claude and ChatGPT both have the projects
Yep.
concept, and you could have uploaded all the files into a project in either of those and done something similar. But I haven't done this in a little bit. But the way I understand how that worked is those all get embedded, and then it uses and then they're not like grepped or searched traditionally. They're all embedded and then accessed via the model.
Yeah.
So even though you can do it that way and get maybe similar results, I don't know.
Right.
This is truly a different
Yeah,
underlying,
totally.
Form
Totally.
factor.
Super interesting. Okay. Next example here is I uploaded I cloned. So you have the other thing, so you have a command line here because it's a computer.
Yes.
Okay. So I cloned our podcast website.
Oh, cool.
Yep. Onto the computer. So
Like downloaded it from GitHub.
yeah, I mean, like git clone.
Git
like
clone.
I actually,
Okay.
yeah. Which is kind of cool. So, so you can just sort of do this. So CD. I need some autocomplete here, by the way.
Feature request.
Yeah. So I'm in here, and then I actually had Zoe install Claude.
Okay. Cool.
So you can actually run this.
Which this is a real world problem that I have that I'm glad we can talk about.
Okay.
The way AI works with the like kind of default transient nature,
Mm-hmm.
I think creates anxiety when you're using it, especially for a task where you're trying to get to some endpoint, because you know you're going to run out of context or tokens at some point, and it's like you don't have a save state. So it's like playing a video game, and you keep going down the level, and you're like, I think I can get there this time. And then you fall, but then you start over, and then you fall. I think that's a really easy state to get into.
Totally.
And hence the whole like context engineering, do all this planning and research beforehand, which is great. I think that makes sense. But even if you know that that's what you're supposed to do, it's still easy to get into the video game mode of like, nah, I don't need to do all that. Like I can get there. And you're like jumping down the like Super Mario Bros. Level.
Yep.
And then you occasionally can get all the way there and like beat a level. And then that's further incentive to do it that way instead of doing it like probably the better way.
Yeah.
Which also could be a whole episode.
It could totally be an episode.
Anyways, but when the files are here and you are writing out your state or writing out some kind of asset as you go, like it's much easier to stay on context.
Totally.
All right, how do we do some updates here?
So I'm just installing dependencies, which I didn't do before.
For the website, right?
Yeah, just to
nice.
see if we can get this. I mean, I don't know. Actually, this will be interesting to see. Like, what does it look like to run this thing locally?
I don't even know.
Let's see.
I mean, there's that sites tab. I assume you can like.
Can you
access that from the sites tab now?
I don't know. Like, this is a computer, so.
Try it.
New site. That's like creating a site. I need like the Zoe browser.
What about Discover? There is a browser, I'm pretty sure.
I know. I thought there was a browser.
Go to System, maybe? The tab?
Here, you know what? Let's just ask...
When in doubt.
When in doubt, ask Zoe. New chat. Can I run a site locally in the Zoe browser? But it's kind of, this is kind of interesting. Okay, so since I can start the next, okay, I already did that though. To make the site accessible via public URL, which you can then open in the Zoe browser.
Oh, it has to be registered as a service, it looks like. Oh, it did it.
Wow. Oh.
I can't see your other tab.
Okay, sorry.
Did it work?
You can also manage this on the services page. Whoops. Okay, sorry, let me share my entire screen here. I can share my entire screen. And then you can see. Oh, whoops. Oh, man. Can you see Zoe here?
Yes.
Dang. I think it,
Oh.
it had an error and it just dumped everything.
All this talk about save state. You can probably go back to your other chat, no?
I don't know. Can I close this? No, I think it lost everything.
Oh.
Oh no, there we go. Right,
Yeah,
but it's not running here actually. Like, oh, maybe it is.
It might be. Yeah, try it. Because I think the agent in the chat started it as well.
Oh yeah, that's annoying though.
And you can go to services that made the service, right? See the create service.
Yeah, but this is weird. Do you see this? Like, I can't even.
Oh, yeah, that's weird. System.
No, when I click services, that's what happened.
Oh.
And then it like.
So maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so whatever. So let's just try PN. You see what's happening there? This is crazy.
Yeah, that was odd. Okay.
Oh, but it was already running.
Yeah, it's running in.
Weird. Okay.
You could tell it to kill it from that chat.
Yeah. Let me see. This is a different one though. Where are my chats? Okay. Kill the process running on port 3000. Or actually, here. No, I killed that one. Okay. Is there still a process running on port 3000? Okay. And then I can visit this site. Okay. So let's see. Oh, this is because we have the thing wired up to Sanity.
Yeah.
Okay, but
That's cool, though.
but that's interesting. Okay, so
But
this
that's public to the internet, I think.
Mhm.
Like I could access that URL as well.
I don't know. Let's see. Can you?
About to find out.
It's podcast-site Eric Dodds zocomputer.io. I'm sharing my whole screen. Otherwise, I would
Yeah, no worries.
message or Slack it to you.
Yep, I get that same error.
Okay, so that's that's super interesting. Okay, so this is really fascinating. So I'm basically doing remote development on this like actual computer,
Yeah,
which is
and
pretty
you
cool.
could actually
Totally.
iterate with it, view, see a visual of what you were doing.
Right. That's super cool. Okay, do we want to run a test really quickly of trying to upload a zip, and then we can talk more about this?
Yes.
Let me just grab some random files to zip. Okay. Test zip. Okay, so I have a couple thoughts here. And one of my thoughts is this is really cool, and I see the potential of this. I definitely see the potential of this. But I guess my question is, like, what are you going to use this for?
Right.
You know, like, it is super cool, but, sorry, I know this sounds crazy, but I'm trying to clean up my desktop and find some files to zip. This is super interesting, but, like, where's the practical utility? I guess maybe to put a sharper point on it, and this is why I would love to have the Zoe founder come on and talk to us, is what are you going to use this for day to day? I mean, I think this is awesome. And I'm paying whatever the minimum plan is, $18 a month. But what am I going to keep? Like, I have not found anything yet. I mean, maybe when I can start running Plex. And they also have some cool ways they use a service where you can keep files on a hard drive and, like, do a virtual sync to their cloud so that you don't, you know, because my media library, I'd have to be on, like, the top plan, and I'm not going to pay hundreds of dollars,
right.
you know, to have, you know, to stream my own MP3s, because there are other ways to do that. But you can sort of create a link between a hard drive and Zoe so that Zoe can essentially stream from that hard drive, you know, and make the stuff available and use the compute on the Zoe computer.
Right.
And so that may be worth $20 a month, you know.
Well, but I think if you think back about this form factor, in a way less, like, cutting edge way, it's a remote desktop form factor, like reimagined. So, like, back in the day,
yes,
you remote into, like, a Windows computer,
yes,
or you have, like, what was it called, back to your Mac, which was a way to remote into a Mac.
yep,
So that's the underlying piece there. The commercial reason to do this is security, essentially. So you can imagine you've got this team of developers in a secure environment, and you're like, I don't want anything touching physical hardware that they're using.
Yep.
We need to do everything remotely. We want full control over the
Yep.
remote environment. The code doesn't leave it. The chats don't leave it. Interesting, right?
Yeah.
That to me would be the most like
Totally.
commercially viable.
But I guess, that's
thing.
what's actually interesting to me. So the local file stuff is cool, but that's not, I mean, your average person's not going to think about that as like the main utility here, right? And I mean, the other thing that's interesting, and I'm sure there are things that we're not thinking about, but you can do that with Cursor or another tool just like on the file system locally, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, that's interesting.
So a lot of mine is like somebody buys it and forces you to use it, right? Because that's the security play.
Right, but they kind of have a consumer-focused
They
go-to-market
do.
is
Yeah,
what it
they
seems
do.
like, right?
I
So
agree.
like I'm building this, and so I have a task name, and then I can, I mean, maybe this is interesting, but again, where's, I don't know, and then what was I going to say? Okay, Sites Discover System. Where is integrations?
Interesting.
So
there's like a text integration.
here's the connections. Oh yeah, you can actually text it, which is kind of interesting.
That is interesting.
Which I haven't tried yet. But I guess what's weird to me here is that you have Gmail, Google Calendar, Google Drive, Notion, Drop. These are all like the normal. I mean, basically, it's the subset of knowledge worker productivity tools that have reasonably sophisticated MCP servers. That have tool calls and stuff, which I get is helpful. But that also kind of defeats. Like, you can do that in GPT.
Right.
Like having this on a computer that I have to upload all of my files to, it just seems like a really heavy-handed way to go after that sort of consumer-ish market,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just interesting.
It is.
Okay, I uploaded our zip unsupported file type.
Oh, darn.
So that's the other thing. So anyways, that's why I would love to get the founder on to talk about this, because at a base level, I think it's super interesting. I mean, one of the things I've conceived of with Raycast is that it running locally on my computer and having access to all those tools and everything gives it way more context for my knowledge work than, even GPT Enterprise, or, whatever, might have. But Zoe actually being a remote computer is a more awkward way to do that because I have to upload all of my stuff, right?
Which conceivably they could come up with some native syncing apps for files.
Yeah, I just don't know. It's just interesting. Like, where's the, like, in everything we just covered, like, where's the $20 a month value that I'm not getting somewhere else? I don't know.
I don't know. I like, it's a good one though. I really like this, like, consideration of a different form factor. That was fun. Because you could look at not a million, but hundreds of clones of like, this is ChatGPT 4, fill in the blank,
Yep.
And it's basically ChatGPT, and they have like a very subtle twist.
Yeah, totally. I think it's one of those things where the architecture is fascinating.
Yep.
And I think will be a gigantic step forward in some way. I just haven't quite found what that is yet.
Yeah.
And or I'm just not the right target user for that,
Sure.
So anyways, fascinating.
Awesome.
And
great
I think
tool time.
that's a wrap.
Yeah,
I think that's
it
a
is.
wrap for episode 1.
Excellent. All right.
All right, we'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.